Hey, speaker, this is Walter Bonnett. Listen, never before in history have I shared all my tips, all my secrets. And so you're a special person because right now I'm going to give you some of my secrets and some of my tips. I don't know why I'm doing it. I guess because I care about you. But here's the first tip. This might be the worst kept secret in speaking, but great speakers are storytellers. And so make no bones about it. If you're going to have a great career as a professional speaker, you need to become a great storyteller. And I don't care who you are, I don't care where you come from. You cannot deny the ability of great presenters to tell stories. When I think about my mentors, when I think about the speakers that I admire, they're great storytellers. I don't care if you're reading the Bible. I don't care if you're listening at church. I don't care if you're reading a good book. Everyone loves a great story. Why? Because when you get engaged to a story, you have to wait to see how the story ends. Think about it. How many times have you watched a bad movie? And even though the movie's dumb, if you invest more than 10 minutes, you lock in because you gotta wait until the end, even though it's dumb, to see how the movie ends. And so it's built in us, the human psychology, that if we engage a couple of minutes into a story, we are spellbound until the story is over because we wanna know how the story ends. So I'm gonna say it again. If you wanna be a great speaker, the first thing you must master is becoming a great storyteller. Now here's one tip. If you have kids, the best way to practice is by reading your kids bedtime stories. If you read your kids bedtime stories, you can make that book come alive. You can make your kids see the lion or the snowman or whatever bedtime story you're reading. You know what I'm talking about? That from little kids, we've always been captured by stories. So one thing we do in our coaching program for speakers is teach what I call the hot dog theory. And the hot dog theory will help you become a better storyteller. So what is a hot dog theory? I'm a Chicago guy, and I know a good hot dog. There's two components to a great hot dog. Are you ready? A great hot dog, I'm not talking about a good hot dog. A great hot dog starts with what? A great frankfurter. Don't give me a cheap hot dog thinking it's a great hot dog. It starts with a quality hot dog. In Chicago, we eat Vienna frankfurters. It's a high quality hot dog. Now, truth be told, you can go and throw some junk together and call it a hot dog. But there's all levels and qualities of hot dogs. Some people don't touch hot dogs altogether, I get that. But if you're gonna be a hot dog eater, there's different levels of hot dogs. So to be a great presenter, the hot dog is your content. What is your content? What is your message? What are you trying to teach people? That's your frankfurter. But if you came to my house and says, Walter, I'm hungry, and I say, hey, I'm gonna serve you some hot dogs. If I gave you a plate full of frankfurters, you would look at me strangely because you expected these hot dogs to come in what? A bun. To be a great speaker, you gotta have great content. That's your frankfurter. But you gotta wrap your content into a great story. Hear me clearly. A hot dog was designed to be a meal on the go. The great speakers out here, they tell a great story and people take it with them. And the legacy is forever. Why? Because you heard the story and the audience takes it with you. See, you've heard speakers. They put you to sleep. Why? Because they drop content after content after content. But if they don't put their content in a story, it's boring. If they don't place the content in a story, it's hard for you to take them with you. I've been speaking for a long, long time. Here's the biggest compliment I get. People will hear me for the second, third, and fourth time, and they are upset if I don't tell a particular story. Your story is just like going to hear a concert and you want your musician to sing your favorite song. We fall in love with songs, and when we go to the concert, we want to hear our favorite song. Speaking is not much different. Build some great content and put your content into a story, and people will fall in love with your story because of the content. I can go on and on about the hot dog theory, but in our coaching program, all we're going to do is teach you how to build amazing hot dogs with great content wrapped in a perfect story. Enough about that. Humor. Great speakers are entertaining. I approach my business as entertainment first. In fact, when I first started speaking, I had no content. I played professional sports. I never had a job. I would come and entertain my audience. But because I was entertaining, I got booked. Because I was entertaining, I got busy. People go and hear comedians all the time. You don't expect to learn something from a comedian, do you? You want to laugh and have a good time. So approach your speaking business with humor and entertainment. Now, if you can add content, you're going to separate yourself. If you can be entertaining and dynamic with content, you're well on your way to having a Hall of Fame career. But you can have great stories and information, but if it's not entertaining, in some cases, it won't have the biggest impact. I'm not going to call any names. I have paid to go and see and hear from great speakers that I heard about. They'll put me to sleep. And I would feel horrible, like, how did I fall asleep? And after a while, I realized, man, dude was boring. I mean, it was great content, but it was boring. So the truth is, I think the key to being a professional speaker is to be humorous, entertaining, and dynamic, to hold your audience's attention. Now, my wife tells me all the time, dude, don't worry about being funny because you're funny naturally. The truth is, great speakers are very entertaining and dynamic. Here's a fourth key: passion. When you speak in a ballroom, you're the teacher. You're the leader. You've been in school before. The teacher's in charge. And you can tell if the teacher cared or not. You went to school and you had teachers who cared about English, cared about algebra, cared about social studies, cared about history, cared about driver's ed. Whatever they were teaching, you knew the difference if a teacher was going through the motions to get through class, and you knew whether or not the teacher was really passionate about the subject they were teaching. You're a motivational speaker. You are a professional speaker. There's no substitute for you not being passionate. Whatever topic you're speaking on, as the leader, you have to show passion, because if you're passionate, you can influence your audience to become passionate. And the truth is, your passion is contagious. Your job is to influence. You won't have a great career if you're not passionate. But if you are passionate, you're well on your way to having not a good career, but a great career. Now let's talk about the stage. I don't care if you're talking to 10 people or 10,000. The truth is, I've done both. So when you're on the platform, it's showtime. When you're on the platform, that is your stage. I was at an event in Oklahoma with some executives. They spoke before me, and my job was to close the event and shut it down. One of the executives teased their colleague that the executive only stayed on the right side of the stage. They looked at me like, Walter, watch this. He only stays on the right side. And it was funny, it was entertaining, but I thought to myself, why did he stay on one side? I mean, it was like thousands of people in the ballroom. He did a great job connecting with the left side of the ballroom, but completely ignored 2/3 of the ballroom. I don't know why, but when you present, you cannot neglect your audience. If there's a stage, use the whole stage. If it's in 3 sections, give equal attention to all 3 sections. People are very sensitive. You can lose a person in a heartbeat, but as a presenter, you can't neglect your audience. if your audience is in 3 different sections, you need to equate the right amount of time equally in all 3 sections. Use all the stage. Use all that you got. Our speaker heard me speak, a veteran speaker. When I got done, she was like, Walter, not only did you use all the stage, you time marked the stage. I'm like, what are you talking about? When you talked about your dad, you were on the left side. When you talked about your current life, you were in the middle. When you talked about your future, you were on the right side of the stage. I didn't know what she was talking about, but she was like, Walter, I watch you and you time mark the stage. I do things instinctively that sometimes make sense to a very technical speaker, but here's the truth. My agenda was using the whole stage. Now here's the next key. Are you ready? Key number 6, time. Don't ever go over your time. Going over your time is a cardinal sin. If they give you 45 minutes, go 45 minutes. If they give you 30 minutes, go 30 minutes. If they give you 60 minutes, go 60 minutes. Now, can I be honest? I have gone over my time before, and it drives my wife crazy. And she's right. Never go over time. Why? That meeting planner has scheduled the whole day down to the minute. And if you go over time, you're being very, very selfish, and you're throwing that meeting planner's whole schedule off. And the only reason you go over time, and I'm guilty of this, is your ego. You think what you have to say is so important that whoever's next, they gotta wait, because what I'm saying is the most important thing. Going over your time, hear me clearly, is a cardinal sin. Maybe the biggest sin there is as a professional speaker. Here's the next key. Are you ready? Q&A. Now, I don't do Q&A now, but early on, I did a lot of Q&A. Why? Because I didn't have 60 minutes of content. They were hiring me for 60 minutes. I was good for 45, and I would do a Q&A. Q&A saved me because I didn't have a full 60-minute program. So depending on the moment, depending on your maturity, depending on your development, Q&A can be your friend. Now I don't do Q&A. Why? Because I can rock it for 60 minutes. I can rock it for 90 minutes. In fact, my wife looked at me and said, dude, you just did a 2-hour keynote. I can rock that mic for 2 freaking hours if I have to. Not in the beginning, but now, because I've been doing this a long, long time. But early on, to stretch the value, Q&A was my friend. It allowed me to hear from the audience and to hear them respond and see the questions they would ask after I presented. And sometimes it allowed me to cover content I forgot about, I didn't cover, but sometimes it allowed me to go deeper into content that I shared on the stage. For you beginners, a Q&A can be your best friend. You might tell your client, I'm going to present for 30 minutes. Let's do a 15-minute Q&A. If you don't have a 60-minute keynote, which is the norm for our industry as a professional, adding on a Q&A is a smart way, a clever way to stretch out your program. Now let's talk about pace and tempo. Pace and tempo. Have you ever heard a speaker who is monotone? I mean, think about it. If you hear a speaker who is monotone, hi, my name is Walter Bonnett. I'm going to talk to you about and the whole freaking 60 minutes, no pace, no tempo, no change. You've been to movies. All the time they change the tempo, they change the speed. The greatest movies are changing the tempo nonstop. Why? It draws you in. Why? The shift forces you to focus. In fact, think about it. You've been in movies with your wife, girlfriend, significant other, and you ask what they say. I couldn't hear. I don't know. You don't think that director knew that you couldn't hear? They're trying to draw you in. They're trying to make sure that you focus. So when you speak, change your pace, change your tempo. If you don't change your pace, if you don't change your tempo, the chances are it is absolutely hard for people to follow you for 60 minutes. Now here's the ninth key. Are you ready? Avoid filler words. Those are filler words. All that means is that you're thinking and you don't know what you're going to say next. Here's a tip. Be patient. Take your time. You're not a professional who speaks. You are a professional speaker. A professional speaker would never say, and they would never use that nervous energy. So the tip to becoming a professional speaker is avoiding filler words because your mind is racing. Experienced speakers, pause. Experienced speakers know the power of a pause. Pauses are so powerful, it can transition thought. It gives your audience a chance to process information. Don't be afraid to use a pause, because a pause is way more powerful than using a filler word like Here's my 10th key. You ready? Your PowerPoint presentation. Now, I can be honest with you. I've been doing this business for a long time. For the first 20 years, I used no PowerPoint. I was a PowerPoint. I would tell keynotes, but don't use a PowerPoint. You don't need, it was an ego thing. And I can hold your attention for 60 minutes. But here's what I learned. A PowerPoint presentation is brilliant because your audience learns a bunch of different ways. What I had to do is get my ego out the way. I would brag and say, I don't need a PowerPoint. And I could hold your attention. But the truth is, I was being selfish. Some members of that audience are visual learners. So a PowerPoint allows people to learn visually. So the PowerPoint is not for me. The PowerPoint is for them. And by using a PowerPoint, it's improved our business. By using a PowerPoint, it's improved our effectiveness. By using a PowerPoint, even though I'm entertaining and dynamic, even though I tell great stories, I have not ever had an audience complain that I use a PowerPoint. In fact, the expectation is for me to use a PowerPoint. Now, what I do, I don't use too many. Pages on my PowerPoint, and I don't use too few. In my slide deck, I don't use too many, and I don't use too few. If you're gonna do a 60-minute presentation, I recommend never use more than 20 slides on your PowerPoint deck. Now, there's some speakers that use more, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a cue. The right amount of slides on your deck are critical. You get on that platform, you're not a professional who speaks. You are a professional speaker. Hopefully you enjoy these tips because I want you to be dynamic on that platform. I gave you some tips, some anecdotes, some thoughts, but you have to be you on that platform. But I know if you take what I just shared with you to heart, it's going to help you become a very dynamic speaker on that platform. Thank you.